Okay. You think that's funny?
You're hearing me today, huh?
Yeah.
We'll tell you later.
Yeah. Baby. Baby, I remember when Jesse first got those things. He's like, it's amazing what I can hear.
Call the Rusk County Board of Supervisors to order. Roll call.
I'll double tap you.
Present, we have a quorum. Pledge of allegiance, or excuse me, invocation by Phil Undershoots, pledge of allegiance by Mike Rusk.
Lord Jesus, we come to you today, thanking you for your goodness. And Lord Jesus, we're asking you for wisdom and guidance as we have difficult decisions to make. Lord Jesus, we pray that you'd help us to make the best decisions for this county. I pray this all in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the October 22nd, 2024 minutes. Motion by Mr. Kudo, second by Mr. Russell. Any other questions or anything? If not, we can vote on it. Passed by majority. Public comment. Limit 3 minutes per person with a maximum public comment of 30 minutes on agenda items only. I would like to ask the public, if your public comment relates to the 2025 budget, can you please save those comments for the 2025 public hearing on the budget portion of the meeting?
Why don't you tell them that's at 9:30, because most of them don't have a budget.
And that's at 9:30. So is there any other public comment? I have a public comment by Mr. Phil Grassman.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Now we can.
You want me to identify myself or no?
Yeah, please.
Phil Grassman. When do you want me to start?
Go.
As we face the economic challenges that confront our county, I want to speak directly to a matter of great importance: the decision to lay off employees versus the opportunity to invest in our workforce and generate new revenue streams. Laying off is a quick solution that will solve zero budgetary constraints long term. If you think we won't be in the same position year after year, you're misleading your own self into believing that. I firmly believe that laying off employees is not only a huge loss of talent and dedication, but also a significant blow to our community's morale and future growth. Our employees are the backbone of our county government, dedicated public servants who work tirelessly to ensure that our community thrives. As leaders, you shouldn't even consider laying people off who have done nothing wrong. Instead of cutting jobs, let us focus on creating strategies to enhance our revenue. That is the underlying reason we are where we are. We aren't creating enough revenue to pay our bills. We are operating a failing business and we're sinking. We need to create more revenue, and we have so many ways to do it. but this board needs to allow it. If you have any business sense about you, you already know that you have to spend money before you can make it. Are these new revenue streams going to fix things today? No, but they will for decades to come, so people who work for this county don't feel this betrayal. A new jail. I know we've been told you don't size a new jail for the purposes of creating revenue, and I agree with that. But you have to keep that in the back of your mind and at least allow us that opportunity. 15 to 20 years ago, our jail made hundreds of thousands of dollars housing out-of-county inmates. Now it makes zero. How progressive is that? It isn't. We're making less and our bills are more. Highway department. How much money does our highway department make? Zero. Surrounding highway departments make hundreds of thousands of dollars every year by doing contracted work for townships, villages, and cities. But it takes a leader to accomplish this, and that leader needs to run their department how they see fit. Other courthouse departments. Almost every department in this courthouse charges fees for services. Raise the fees. People aren't going to stop paying them. Everything in this world has gotten more expensive. You have to assess your current costs. If your current expenditures are higher than your revenue, you have to make adjustments to keep up. That's just simple business management 101. This county literally wastes thousands and thousands of dollars every single year because there's so many committees. And in most of those committee meetings, nothing gets accomplished. We pay labor attorneys a lot of money. Start listening to them. We pay department heads, HR, admin, and court counsel a lot of money. Start listening to them. Some elected officials in that building, in that room right now, they're personnel, N-A-L, not personnel, N-E-L, agendas are ruining this county. Have a marvelous day.
Thank you, Phil. Any other public comment?
I have a general statement about the budget. Do you want that in there like his, or do you want me to save that?
It's part of the 2025.
It's just a general comment about the budget, not a specific line. I'll save it. Aaron Webster. I'm asking that you vote no for numbers 2 through 5 changes to the handbook policy. I've not minced words that the top administration here in Rusk County is not behaving in a way that is conducive to happy employees. There's no reason at this point in time to be making these changes. At last month's meeting, it was brought up that it would seem that this would streamline procedures in having the ad hoc committee removed and only the HR manager and the department head interview and make decisions. However, this isn't about streamlining. As I see it, it is about power. And I don't know why, when we're at a time like this, when we've just laid people off permanently from their positions and created more undue stress within the culture of this organization, that you as board members would want to further the angst within this group of employees. I know there are a number of you on this board that are also power hungry and are more than happy to see the power go to the HR director and by design, the administrative coordinator. And it's also already clear that there are no checks and balances at the top, and changes to this policy would make that reality even worse.
Thank you, Aaron. Any other public comment? Public comment? None being heard, close public comment. Reading of the 2025 budget.
Wait till
Gotta wait till 9:15 on that, so we're gonna do that.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead and do.
We'll skip down to number 2 on.
We're gonna do whatever you think we can get done in 6 minutes.
Okay, we can do the recognition. Number 6, resolution of accommodation for the Rusk County Treasurer, Verna Mountain. She, got recognized by the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association, which is nice to hear. Number 7 is the David G. Meisner Award for the Public-Private Corporation 2024 recipient Rusk County and Oakley Clinic. We're receiving an award for our, joining with the Oakley and our medical side of it, and saving the building and saving some jobs, and so we were invited to come down there, but obviously we got budget hearings, so it's down in Milwaukee tomorrow. So somebody will be accepting it for us on our behalf, and leave the speech we sent along. We'll take a 5-minute recess here. I know it's kind of weird, but we got 5 minutes before we do the 9:15.
Dress shirt, you put your sweatshirt over.
Where's your, you should have got a bright green tie. Amazon has them.
Once you get rid of Scott, you'll have lots of money, you can have lots of ties.
We ain't getting rid of them.
eBay has a bunch of garbage on there.
They do. People buy it too. 18 bars of soap for $175.
18 bars of dial soap for
$75. It is. People are just.
I can't believe you paid that much for it.
Reading budget. General government. Circuit court, $287,012.
Mr. Chairman, could you use the microphone, please?
I reckon. Drug court grant, $5,395. CJ coordinator, 0. Medical examiner, $72,945. Guardian ad litem, $32,502. County board, $89,393. Board of adjustments, -89. District attorney, $219,216. Crime victim witness coordinator, $35,621. Corporate counsel, $94,968. Family counseling fund, $3,000. County clerk, $247,317. Audit financing, $370,603. Insurance is $126,120. Cost allocations is -$334,100. County treasurer is -$40,924. Plat books, 0. County fleet internal service fund, 0. Central service internal service fund, 0. Courthouse, $636,913. Other county properties is $17,600. Tax deed property management, $10,300. Register of deeds, $76,863. Land information division, $72,380. Land information grant public access, 0. Clinic building, -105,420. Transfer from RCMH building, 0. Administration, $266,705. Information technology, $266,705.
258.35.
Yeah, I screwed that up. But $258,835, correction. Insurance deduction fund, 0. ARPA disaster fund net, 0. Which total general government net of $2,435,155. Public safety, sheriff patrol administration, $2,681,858. Sheriff jail operations, $2,211,609. Sheriff water patrol grant, 0. Snowmobile, sheriff snowmobile patrol grant, $5,481. Sheriff K-9, 0. Sheriff tactical team, $23,374. Sheriff, emergency drug grant, is that what they want, is it? Edge?
Yeah, that's the, like the vehicle term, it's the.
0. Sheriff's Baron Rusk Department or Drug Enforcement Unit, 0. Sheriff Victim Service Specialist, $5,432. Sheriff's Baron Rusk Drug Enforcement Unit Meth Grant, 0. Sheriff Wireless 911, 0. Sheriff ATV Grant, $2,073. Sheriff Shop and Cop Program, 0. Sheriff Protective Lifesaver, 0. Sheriff Jail Building Maintenance, $11,752. Sheriff Jail Assistance Fund, 0. Ambulance Operations, $709,673. Ambulance Grant, 0. Local Emergency Planning Operations and Grant, 0. Local Emergency Planning Equipment Grant, 500. Emergency Management, $55,250. Animal Control Dog License Trust Fund, 0. Animal Shelter, $56,055. Animal Shelter Building Fund, 0. Animal Shelter Spade and Neuter Fund, 0. Animal Shelter Gift Fund, 0. With a total public safety net of $5,763,777. Public Works, Highway Administration, $262,399. Highway County Trunk Highway Maintenance, $986,956. Highway County Trunk Highway Construction, 0. Highway Bridge Construction Aid, $185,000. Highway Bituminous Operations Fund, 0. Highway Gravel Pit Operations Fund, 0. Highway Equipment Operations Fund, 0. Highway Radio Fund, 0. Highway State Maintenance, 0. Highway Local Districts, 0. Highway Local Departments, 0. Highway Public Charges, 0. Airport Operations, $67,090. Airport Expansions, $7,500. Rusk County Transit Commission Services, $18,500. RCTC Drivers Escort Service, $15,978. Recycling grants is $17,169. The total public works of $1,560,592. Health and Human Services, Senior Services and Senior Citizen Centers, $16,845. Senior Services Source Newspaper, 0. Senior Services Service Management Grants, $96,415. Senior Services Congregate Meals and Grant, $12,873. Senior Services Home Delivered Meals Grant, $201,425. Senior Service Vehicle Equipment Trust Fund, 0. Senior Service Elderly Abuse Grant, 0. Senior Service Family Caregivers Grant, 0. Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, 0. HHS jail meals, 0. Public health, $190,270. Public health WIC grant, $31,245. Public health reproductive health grant, 0. Public health parental care grant, 0. Public health opioid, 0. Public health immunization action plan grant, 0. Public health birth to 3, 0. Public health mental child health grant, 0. Public health preparedness grant, 0. Human service child care, 0. And human service economic support, $99,911. Human service services, $259,069. Human service Wisconsin Works, 0. Human service community intervention, 0. Human service WEEP emergency assistance, 0. Human service temporary assistance, 0. Human service temporary assistance, 0. Human service intoxicated driver surcharge, 0. Human service donations, 0. Human service youth aid, 0. Human service case management, 0. Human service comprehensive community service, 0. Human service child and families, $447,902. Human service adult disability resource center, $77,029. Human service MA enhanced, 0. Human service child long-term support, 0. Veteran services, $86,198. Veteran service commission fund, 0. Child support, $45,427. Coordinate service team, 0. Short-term borrowing for court orders and judgments, -$500,000. Total health and human services is $1,064,616. Culture, recreation, and education. Library operations, $417,643. Fairgrounds is $105,975. Senior Youth Center operations, $20,405. Fair, 0. Trails and Camp, $20,160. UW Extensions, $53,854. Foodwise Community Garden, $500. Rusk County Restorative Youth Program, $19,127. Total culture, recreation, and education is $637,664. Conservation and development. County Forest, -$385,593. Forest State Aid Forestry, 0. Forest County Forest Road AIDS Grant, 0. Forest Land Acquisition Fund, 0. Forest County Conservation Aid, 0. Forestry Snowmobile Trails Grant, $1,116. Forestry Development Habitat, 0. Forestry ATV Trails and Grant, 0. Forestry Gravel Crushing, 0. Forestry Carbon Credits, 0. Parks and Recreation, $146,648. Parks County Owned Dams, $1,100. Parks Development Fund, 0. LWCD Boat Landing Repairs, 0. LWCD Wildlife Damage Program, 0. LWCD NACD Grant, 0. LWCD Tree Program, 0. LWCD Well Decommissioning, 0. LWCD Conservation Special Projects, 0. LWCD non-metallic mining, negative $388. LWCD shoreline protection program, 0. LWCD LWRM cost share program, 0. LWCD land conservation division, swarm, 0. Power line, 0. Trail park development fund, 0. Economic development, 0. Economic development, Bruce County USDA revolving loan fund, 0. Economic division tourism, 0. Economic Development Joint Management Enterprise Center, 0. Economic Development Management Fritz Avenue, 0. Economic Development Joint Management Gates Avenue, 0. Economic Development Warehouser Satellite Building, 0. Economic Development Minor Avenue Building, 0. Economic Development Rail Industrial Park, 0. Economic Development Forest Industrial Park Building, 0. Economic Development Forest Industrial Park Building, 0. Building 2. Economic Development ADF Building, 0. Economic Development Mining Reuse Funds, 0. Zoning, 46,418. Housing CDBG Housing Revolving Loan Fund, 0. Housing CDBG Home Loan Grant Fund, 0. Total conservation development is negative 190,659. Okay, capital outlay. Courthouse equipment fund, 25,000. Capital projects, highway, 0. Capital projects, highway, 0. With a total capital outlay of 25,000. Debt services fund is 2,982,900. And that's total debt services, 2,982,900. Contingencies, emergencies, wages and adjustments and shortage, 300,000. Total contingency is 300,000. Total expenses after reimbursements, $14,579,045. Other general revenues. Other tax collections, negative $2,364,984. Sales tax fund applied, negative $1,200,000. General fund applied for prior years is negative $805,796. With total other general county revenues of negative $4,370,780. 2024 levy to be collected in 2025 is $10,208,265. And the 2023 levy for 2024 collections was $8,883,169. Okay, so there's the reading of the budget. Next in line would be the public hearing of the 2025 budget. This would be the time for the public to comment on the 2025 budget. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to come and, speak on the 2025 budget. My name is Cece Rudnicki. For those of you that don't know me, I started working for Rusk County in 1998 as the Rusk County zoning administrator. Exactly 12 years ago, at the 2013 budget hearing, the county board decided at that time, against many people's wishes, to combine 3 departments: the land information, land conservation, and the zoning office. And I was chosen to be the director of that combined department. It's called the Land Conservation Development Department. And we worked very hard to meet the goals that the county board set for us. Goals like improving service to the public, increasing efficiencies, improving workload requirements for the staff, improving accountability, improving intergovernmental cooperation, and improving cost effectiveness. So these were all positive things that we worked on, and we worked on them well, and we did them well, and we had a successful consolidation of departments. In the end, we also reduced costs to the taxpayer. It wasn't a goal, it wasn't an intent, but that's what we did. We found ways to work more efficiently, and do more with less, and we did it well. We replaced a retired department head position with a contracted staff, and we got a lot more remonumentation done in the county because that department head wasn't there and didn't have to do 2 jobs at once. That contracted staff could focus on what they needed to do. We combined clerical staff and improved intergovernmental effectiveness. We worked to develop something called the ArcGIS Enterprise Agreement. I hope it's something that's still used today. It was something that we could share with all kinds of departments and really improve efficiencies within the county as a whole. We saved money and not one single person lost their job. My point here is that there is always another way to solve a problem. The staff recommendation, reduction recommendation is not the best solution for dealing with the budget issue. I realize that staff pay cuts are the biggest clubs that we have, where we can save the most dollars. But are we targeting the right staff? Are the people being let go the ones that caused the budget shortfall? I think this is something that you need to consider. How did we get to this point? We don't just get a $2+ million deficit overnight. It's happening over time. And it seems to me that the people that are getting paid the most money to keep the county budget on task and the county fiscally responsible are not doing their jobs. When these people are recommending that everyone get a 1.5% to 3% raise at one meeting, while also telling department heads that they need to cut their budgets by 15%, there is some kind of disconnect here. We just heard the budget reading and we know what the numbers are for this year. A fun thing is to look back at past budgets and see what's happened over time. I can tell you that I did that, and over the past 4 years, in the general fund categories, the county is spending at least $4 million more a year. And for several years before that, it was pretty steady. So there's something happening here that we are not getting the oversight that's needed. I can talk about salaries that have increased dramatically, positions that have been added that are unnecessary. There's all kinds of things that can go on here. I know that some of the talk is about jail housing. I looked at the numbers for jail housing. I can tell you, 2019 we spent $12,255. 2020, 0. 2021, 3,311. 2022, 12,000. 2023, 15,000. Now 2024 is 105,000, and it's budgeted to be 300,000 next year. Something is happening here. I don't think we have that many more prisoners. I don't know, maybe parts of the jail have been closed off, but something needs to be looked at here. I was in the room in 2016 when there was a representative from the WCA telling the county board the differences between an administrative coordinator, a county administrator, and a county executive. The county board felt very strongly that a single person should not be in charge of all the county administration. And the county board voted to appoint an administrative coordinator so the board and committees would retain oversight. That's an important part of your role as county board member. I was happy to know this, and many members of the public agreed. We look to the county board members for your leadership and direction. It's time to stop this darkness and division that has taken over Rusk County government for the past 4 years. It isn't difficult to see when the problems started. It is time to start looking for well thought out solutions that bring back open government, employee morale, and sound judgment. Please vote no to this budget. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Rusk.
that was 5 minutes and 38 seconds. Well, there's no limit.
There's no time limit, no.
Never mind, sorry.
It's all good.
Never mind.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Rusk County Board of Supervisors. My name is Anthony Engel. I'm a Rusk County resident, employee, and taxpayer standing in front of you today to voice my opposition to the proposed 2025 budget. I'm opposed to this budget because it includes the termination of 6 Rusk County employees without due cause. The sole purpose of these terminations was to assist in correcting the projected 2025 budget deficit. I am very confused and very concerned on how we got to this point in county governance. Earlier this past year, a much needed cost of living wage increase and health savings account contribution increase was approved and given to the employees to help with retention issues and recruitment of new employees. These benefits did not go unnoticed and were much appreciated. Fast forwarding to this fall, now all of a sudden we are broke. We're forced to terminate 6 employees without notice. Should being blindsided like this be acceptable? Where was the advance notice? Is our budget being properly monitored? I've also noticed they were quick to point the finger at departments who are being named as responsible for the budget shortfall: Health and Human Services and the Sheriff's Department. Chapter 51 placements and housing inmates. We all know that mental health problems in our community and around our nation are on the rise. Housing inmates is our statutory obligation and is the cost of doing business when we arrest criminals. Unfortunately, both issues and relative expenditures are not going away. If we are faced with the same scenario next year, are we going to terminate another 6 employees? I'm not here to blame anyone. To my knowledge, what is apparent here is that there's work to be done. We shouldn't cut services or positions that provide services to Rusk County citizens. Rusk County needs to generate more revenue, plain and simple. The most concern I have is how these 6 employees have been treated. They're being terminated for no reason of their own. Most have worked here a long time, several over 20 years. They were not forewarned about their pending termination, and after the decision was made by the Personnel Committee in October, employees were notified by a phone call that they lost their job at the end of this year. A hiring freeze was never initiated. These 6 displaced employees were never offered any other open positions within Rusk County. This is no way to treat people. The collateral consequences of such actions will have a detrimental effect on these 6 and the rest of their employees for a long time. This budget issue makes me think about my own personal finances here at home. I remember being newly married and starting a family. We lived paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes we really had to scrape to get by. Any extra money earned was always put into a savings account in case something were to happen. And of course, something always did. The furnace quit working, the car broke down, or God forbid, someone got really sick and needed to go to the hospital. I remember the sick feeling when the bills started coming in and we didn't have the money in our checking account. Well, what did I do? I took the extra money out of my savings account to pay for these unexpected bills. The moral of my story is I did not kick one of my kids out of the house because they cost too much. And that's exactly what we're doing to the 6 people. One other point I wanted to bring up was the elimination of the jail account specialist position at the Rusk County Sheriff's Office. Are you aware that this position generates on average at least $100,000 of revenue for Rusk County per year? Does it make sense that we're cutting a position that generates revenue? I also want to point out, according to the Rusk County Personnel Handbook, under Chapter 2, Employment Categories and the Performance Evaluations, Section 3, Elimination of Employment Categories, it states, quote, when it is determined that an employment category or categories are no longer useful or needed, the Personnel Committee may recommend abolishment to the board, full board. I don't believe this was followed, and I believe it needs to be addressed. To summarize, I don't feel these 6 employees were treated fairly at all. They deserve some dignity and respect for all the hard work they've done for Rusk County. Based on the aforementioned issues I brought forth, I strongly recommend the Rusk County Board of Supervisors not to approve this current 2025 budget proposal or the terminations of these 6 employees. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Debbie Slater, and I'm gonna be like a repeat, you're gonna hear the same things over and over. I'm here to address the 2025 budget. I questioned how just a few months ago, a surplus was found that everyone, it was recommended that you gave employees pay raises. Hey, I agree, we gotta have money to live, it costs a lot of money. But then how, after just a few months later, you need to recommend to eliminate positions to balance the budget, not by seniority, nor as you have been advised, where they contacted each department head and asked them to give up one of their employees that they felt they could do it. I did speak only to one department head who advised to me that they did not give up an employee. So looking back on October 10th, in closed session, 3 members of the Personnel Committee made the decision to eliminate 6 employees, or actually not eliminate the employees, I guess a reduction of these positions. One with 25 years of experience. Then again on October 17th, the personnel met again, but they did not go into closed session for lack of a second in their minutes. And the meeting was adjourned, but not until about 30 minutes later. There were 2 key points I took away from this meeting. The meeting was recorded and I had watched it. So first of all, there was discussion, and one of the committee members said that there was a leak that was spread throughout the courthouse after the October 10th meeting. That kind of concerned me, because what has been done with that? Why would there be a leak? And apparently they said that there was a letter or an email that was addressed to all of you folks, I guess, or to the committee, the supervisors. And I would like to know what that is, so if that ever becomes public record, I guess I feel that you should share that with the public. And then the other concern that I had was the committee was advised that each department administrator, this is kind of going back on what I previously said, gave HR a position within their department that would have the least impact to the public and to their staff that could be eliminated. That's not entirely true, because like I had told you, I already spoke with one administrator and they did not make that recommendation or give up that position. So why would the Personnel Committee instruct the administrative coordinator and the HR to notify these selected employees without informing you, the full county board? Was there discussion on assigning these employees to other positions or to fill current vacancies? As a board, are you willing to change personnel policy and forego the final saying on decision making? Or have you been misled, deliberately leaving out certain details or facts in order to manipulate the truth? Are there some that are intentionally misleading you and preventing you from making informed decisions? You should demand complete transparency. When someone shows a lack of respect for you, they have a disregard for all open communications. Is this what the residents of Rusk County want, and why they have elected you to be their voice? So today, you will be voting on the 2025 budget. I understand the gruesome task to balance the budget, but I request you to ask yourselves, is this what's right for Rusk County taxpayers and employees? Many of you, along with former county board members, have worked unselfishly for Rusk County, being dedicated and highly respected leaders of the community. And for that, I thank you. I worked for Rusk County for 40 years. When I got hired, we had an outstanding board chairman, Melvin Wedwick. He was a total pillar of the community, and he was a highly respected man. We had many of them that have come all the way down through, and I'm sure a lot of you, I can see some faces, a lot of you I do not know, but I know that Rusk County has been a great place to work for. I've enjoyed it all of my life, and I wouldn't want to change anything. But again, I'm asking you, as county supervisors, to please consider when you're voting on this budget, is this what your voice, is this what your constituents want to be heard? Also, I would like to share a statement that I recently read with you. So, who's talking? So anyway, I have a statement that I recently saw, and I felt it was so true, and I thought I'm gonna share it with you, so please listen up. No matter how educated, talented, rich, or cool you believe you are, how you treat people ultimately tells all. Integrity is everything. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Troy Lyman, Rusk County Highway Department worker and taxpayer. Thank you all for being here and for your service to the county. A word I'd like to start with is fiscal responsibility. It is what all of our departments at the county need to be practicing. We have departments that do not work within their means or even try to operate as if the county has an endless checkbook. And when other departments need to take cuts in their operations, funds, or employees to try to help fix the expenditures of those departments, the departments that overspend, the departments then there will suffer, even struggle to do the job that you expect of them. At a time when good employees are so hard to find, and 3 positions at the highway department, 2 of which still remain vacant, have been so hard to find people to fill them, and with 2 retirements on the horizon, let me ask you, does it seem wise to let an employee of 15 years go, just because his position is no longer deemed needed? The amount of knowledge and leadership employees like this bring to the table cannot be replaced. Employees like this should not be just told, you're done, but be given a chance to move to a different position. I encourage you all, ask the questions to the decisions being made. How will this affect the operations of the department? Is there any other things that could be cut or done without? I feel departments should have the best judgment on what could be done to help the county as a whole meet their budget. Not just a few people looking at numbers, not really knowing what those numbers pertain to or represent. It seems to me that more digging could have been done on this budget decision. I know the positions you hold are not glorious. You're dealing with many things out of your control. Record high inflation, court orders, regulations, mandates, just to name a few. My hope and my prayer is for all of you
do the hard things, ask questions, expect answers. But please do not sacrifice good employees or make departments suffer because of departments running like you have an open checkbook. And thank you for your time, and I ask you to vote no on 2025 budget.
Good morning, my name is Skip Barkman, Robert, for those that don't know me. I work at the Highway Department, I've been there since 1994. I've put in my time, seen a lot of different things. The Highway Department needs every person that we have. You're taking a position of 15 years and you're throwing it out the door. This man plows the state highway, can run any crew. This morning, handing out job titles, job things to do. One employee says, well, are we gonna have a foreman on the job? Well, no, you're not gonna have a foreman on the job because you're gonna lay one off, and he is one of our foremen. He's a well-liked foreman. We take off today on our own time to come up and stand up for him. We pledge allegiance to the flag, liberty and justice to all. He's done nothing. He stood up when the highway department needed people. Car 2 is what we call him, road super, needed time away from the phone. He's got the phone 365 days a year. So 4 guys are asked to stand up, volunteer to take on some of that responsibility. One employee we're looking at now stood up and said, yeah, I'll do that. Now that employee calls me 12 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going out plowing snow, whatever the case may be. But somebody has to take that phone. Now you wanna know about the morale at the highway department? They're working with their heads down and in fear because they don't know where the next cut is coming. These are people that are dedicating their life to Rusk County and are willing to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go plow snow. To get up at midnight and go cut down trees. It's a dangerous job. You don't just throw anybody into that position. This man's got 15 years. He can do anything of it. He'll work any crew, and most of the guys will work with him and are happy to. We were asked at the highway department to cut our budget by 15%. We did that. This man that we're looking at letting go is valuable. He works the state. 70% of his wages are coming out of the state budget. Between working for the state and other jobs. 30% are coming out of the county's budget. Okay, we let him go. December 31st is your last day. You cannot say anything about it or you're a disgruntled worker and you'll be fired and he'll lose everything he's got. Okay? The next day we hire a new employee for Rusk County Highway Department. Right now he's sitting at MSHA classes. He's got to have 24 hours of MSHA. 100% of his wages are coming out of the Rusk County Highway budget. 70% of his is coming from the state. His character is above and beyond. There's no reason to get rid of this man. But one more, he's the only one that can run the hot mix plant. If you think it's easy to run a hot mix plant, come on up and try it. There's more buttons than you'll know what to do with. And if you take him out of this position, you have no one. We have budgeted supposedly 10 miles of paving to do next year. Who's gonna run the plant? You've got nobody. Every time you fire that plant up, you're gonna throw money away. You wanna get work from other townships? This isn't the way to do it. You're not gonna get the material that you want, you're not gonna get the job that you want, and you're not gonna have the personnel that you need. So it's my thought that you ought to reconsider on who you're gonna take out. Please consider who he is and what he's done for the county. He gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning and goes plow snow. Everybody wants to get here on time and nobody wants to go in the ditch. Well, that season's coming up. Think about it, and thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Candace Sorensen, and I'm here to be very transparent about the situation that's happening with the terminations and the notices that have been given to these 6 employees. Transparency is something I always expect and hope for from situations that come like this. I'm understanding that the week these termination notices were received by these employees, 2 new employees were hired. As mentioned, they were notified on a Thursday, and in my brother-in-law, Scott Brinker's department, a new employee was hired that Friday. I don't really understand how that makes any sense. I'm not sure who's answering the questions as to why. I'd like to know how these people were selected, and I know it's been stated that it is in no way in relation to their management or skills or capabilities or performance-based. They were just picked, drawn from a hat. I don't understand how that can be or why anybody would be in agreement to that. As it was just previously stated, many of his wages aren't even paid. It's not even benefiting this budget. So it really makes even less sense for him to be one of the 6 or any of them to be. I think if you have to terminate somebody, it should be based on their performance versus just based on their position. And I, again, would like to know how they were selected and why they were selected. I don't know who has those answers. I don't know if that's something that can be shared, but I propose that you say no to the budget just based off of these 6 terminations and that you reconsider those terminations. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Aaron Webster, community member, taxpayer, and wife of a former highway worker. How much money are we gonna spend on our budget lines continuing year after year for litigation? That's what I wanna see you guys put a stop to. And regarding to the 2025 budget that's before you, this board needs to find enough money in its budget to reverse the decision to cut 6 positions from this organization. I want to say that I find it extremely disheartening when 2 employees who have dedicated their entire careers of public service to this organization have given you ideas through finance and highway, our 2 departments that are experiencing significant problems, that they would be dismissed and disregarded with the information that they have to share. It shows the level of chutzpah that this organization is living through, and that I have been highlighting for 2 years. When you have intelligent, hardworking individuals who try to help you understand a budget that you do not really understand yourselves, and you say that you have it figured out, you know it better, or your young finance director knows it better, that is the definition of chutzpah. The taxpayers of this county don't deserve it. The community members don't deserve it. The employees in this building and out at the highway shop don't deserve it either. And the 6 employees who have lost their jobs at the end of the year certainly do not deserve it. I believe 5 of the 6, or maybe 4 of the 6 wages that come out of their budget don't have an offset. I just learned about an offset today from, I believe, the sheriff's department. So see, maybe we don't always understand where there's an offset to somebody's wages. Why would the blacktop foreman be let go before you've decided what's happening to the blacktop plant? That has not been in discussion to get rid of that plant entirely. So why are we letting this person go at this time? Do you understand how Scott Brinker's wages are offset? It's been mentioned, but I will say that I don't want to see anyone from that department let go. But choosing Scott's position was dumb and couldn't have taken much thought to choose him over someone else. When he does winter maintenance, do you understand who pays for that? He runs the state roads. When the crew paves roads, do you understand what that does for the county? This highlights the reality that people making the decisions here don't really understand the budget. And there's a problem a lot bigger here than the 2025 budget. But before you today is the budget. I hope you will say no or bring amendments to the floor. You must be making the best decision for every line item that you see, because every line item says whether or not we needed to terminate 6 employees and devastate their families. This is your job. It's your job to oversee finance department and the committee, that they have done their due diligence to this county, and I don't think they have. It's up to the rest of you here to make sure that you are doing what is required for your position. No one told you that this would be easy, and this year is proving more difficult than recent past. But the position cuts lie solely on every shoulder in this room. You do not leave this to the personnel committee. You all take responsibility for this decision because it rests on every one of you.
Thank you. Any more public comment? None being heard, public comments be closed. Now to the resolutions. Number 1, adopt 2025 budget and 2024 property tax levy to be collected in 2025.
Need a motion and a second to bring the resolution on the floor.
Any motion or a second? Motion by Mr. Phil Undershoots, second by Jim Meyer. Question, Mr. State.
I've been hearing a lot of things in the last few months, and I would like to take a year to sort all this back out, because it just happened in very few months, and not all of us were even privileged to what happened. So I started looking through the budget for $447,800.
Right.
Okay. Now, it's a three-step motion. First of all, I would like to remove $200,000 from the levy for the ambulance. Second,
Can I just, on the ambulance goes over our levy limit. So removing $200,000 from the ambulance levy does not allow that to be transferred to other budgets.
doesn't that work with the sheriff's department too?
No, it does not.
It does not. So how much can I take out of there?
However much you want, but it's not going to fix the problem. We go over the levy limit by 700 out of the.
709,000?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me rephrase it then. I would like to take $447,800 from the general fund, which would, basically mean that we could use that to get rid of the reduction of workforce, and the general fund would only go down by very little. I didn't compute it because I thought the ambulance could reuse the money. So that is my motion to take $447,800 out of the general fund to be used for, and I don't know the lines, but I won't go through them, 126, 130, 142, 211, 310, and 463. That's my motion.
Can you, sorry, say those budget pages again?
Pardon?
The budget pages?
Oh, the ones listed in your thing, that's where I took it from.
Okay.
Changes for the 2025.
Hang on, yeah, we'll do an amendment to the budget.
Yeah.
So, we're moving forward, I'm sorry, yeah, we're moving $447,800 from the general fund.
Yeah.
And then we're adding that.
With the 6 individual
Yep,
line
and
items.
that's what we need to do, and we're adding, do you have the amounts that we're adding to each specific line item that will be, please?
Not off the top of my head, no, I have to,
Okay, well, we'll need
for
that.
total, yeah.
And with the specific line items.
Yeah, it's going to hit, several line items in each budget.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I would second it.
Okay with that, but I would like everybody to know what the actual motion is before we proceed.
Thank you.
I was gonna write it down. It doesn't have the exact line. It's just- That's above my head line.
If it's on the motion, yes. Everybody's got the understanding of what he's doing, we'll work on the actual language, so then we can continue the discussion, correct? Right, everybody understands what the motion is, we're not gonna vote on it, then we'll go ahead and discuss to move along. And then she'll get the specific line items that are being added back in the specific budgets, and then I'll put that up on the screen.
Can we hit the amendment button, so that the speaking is in the amendment part of the discussion, a motion and a
Did you do
second,
that?
and that part of it, no.
Oh, okay, amend. And then Dave second.
Now you
Okay,
can,
go ahead.
now you can do your discussion, Phil.
Obviously, the idea of pulling down the general fund and putting it.
Would you speak up, Phil?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, obviously, the idea of pulling from the general fund and putting in those line items would temporarily, allow room that somebody could decide to keep those positions if that's what personnel change. But the other problem is that doesn't resolve the issue. For years, the problem has been, the answer to every solution is to keep pulling down the general fund. If we pull down the general fund this year so we don't get rid of 6, next year we're getting rid of 12. I don't think just pulling out of general fund all the time is the answer to the solution either. That's kind of been the direction where it's been headed for years, and it hasn't seemed to solve any solutions. At the same time, I've reached out to department heads and I've had constituents reach out. A lot of my constituents are you know, not for, eliminating positions and giving people 2 months' notice before their positions are gone. I have other constituents, on the other hand, who say, at some point you gotta do something. If you keep saying, every time somebody says, well, we don't wanna cut anything, then you're left with the same problem that just magnifies and gets worse. So at some point, we gotta do something to solve the issue of, we can't just keep spending money and saying, well, we'll just keep pulling it out of the general fund. Talking to department heads, they're saying that every one of these employees are very valuable employees, and obviously you don't wanna lose that talent. And I understand that we're voting on a budget and not voting on the positions today. But a thought of mine is, instead of passing this motion to just pass on 500,000 the next year to figure it out, that we should instead say 2 months is a really short time to try to find a different position in the county. I get that, Christmas is coming up, and I hate to see somebody lose their job. But if we could fund it for 6 months, and say, okay, we're gonna fund those positions for 6 months, give 5 furlough days for the first 6 months, and tell all those employees to apply for open positions in the county. That would give them the opportunity to jump into a different position. Within 6 months, something's gonna come up. We just heard that in highway, there's gonna be retirements coming up. There would be a spot where somebody could move to a position.
Exactly.
And still be able to balance the budget if we use the combination of, say, 5 furlough days for the first 6 months, and then funded those positions for the 6 months. Otherwise, if we just keep saying, let's just keep pulling down from the general fund and increasing fees and everything else, we're just gonna keep being in this situation. The idea here is we don't wanna lose the talent, so if we can say, let's fund them for 6 months, that gives people opportunity. And I know there's been some comments made that, you know, people were called and said their positions being eliminated, and the next day they hired somebody. That has to do with the bad timing thing, right? People already applied. And,
seriously.
And now, all of a sudden you're told, and you didn't have time to apply for that open position, right? So if you gave 6 months in time to transfer over to a different position, I think that would at least take care of the budget issue and not have to lose these talented people. Just my thoughts, that I would rather see us do it that way than say, let's continue to add to this problem so we just have more problems next year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to address the public to keep quiet. We'll have to ask you. This is the one and only warrant. Mr. Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would address a couple of points made by Mr. Undershoots. One, when there are open or vacant positions available in the department, and you are laying off or terminating an employee in that department, they don't have to apply for that position. The county could very, very easily offer them that, another position that's available in their department. That's been a practice in the highway department, I know, for well over 30 years. That when a foreman's position was eliminated, they were always put back into the crew. So the fact that there was a vacant position available, the county could have offered that vacant position. I do understand your point about taking down the general fund. Obviously, the general fund needs to be robust, and we have minimum requirements that we must maintain in the general fund to maintain our bond rating and other financial stability within the system. So I understand that. But I do also understand that when a budget crisis arises relatively soon, quickly, and it followed a period of time about only a few months ago when we were assured that we had a surplus. Now, it seems to me when you say that you have a surplus, you would only make that statement that we have a surplus if you have analyzed any possible unforeseen expenses that might arise in the next 6 months to a year, that you're relatively certain you're not going to have an unexpected expense that you hadn't planned for, or that you solidly believe that surplus is available for the purpose that you are about to recommend. But all of this took place so quickly that I truly believe that our finance department and our finance committee was given very little time to create a plan. And so the budget solution that was brought was probably a quick plan that may not have taken into consideration all the ins and outs and possibilities. I'm troubled that a budget crisis arose, and we've had at least 3 county board meetings since that budget crisis was identified, and no one has come before this board and explained to this board what that budget crisis was, why it occurred, or how it occurred. Nor did anyone come before this board and ask us to recommend to them our preferred solutions. So there's a number of options. You could, as you suggested, furlough days, position cuts, eliminating services, maybe not eliminating the service, but just let the county or the public know that we can't respond to certain services as quickly as we used to. There's a number of other options. No one came to this board and said, before we, as the finance committee and the personnel committee, consider how we're going to address this problem, what do you think and what are the limitations that you would like to place on the solutions? And I think that's a missing ingredient here. And now all of a sudden we're sitting here with the budget that's been created based on internal recommendations, not any input from this board. I admire Mr. Snyder's diligence in looking for a place. It would seem to me that his suggestion of using the general fund, not as an ongoing or continuing solution, but to give the county the time, as you've suggested, maybe 6 months, to come up with a real plan. Because this is not a problem that's gonna go away with the action or the recommendations that have already been implemented. This is not a problem that's gonna go away in 2025. I think we've probably spent down a number of our fund balances, and they're no longer available. But I think we need more time for a plan that we can all own, a plan that I can look at my constituents and say, we did our due diligence as a board to see if we could find better solutions than have been already suggested. I'm not faulting necessarily the people who came up with those solutions. I'm just saying we didn't have the input into that. And I would like to be able to tell my constituents that the board analyzed and studied and are owning the plan that was given. I can tell you that in my 40 years of making bad decisions on the county board, that I have never received 30 plus emails or phone calls from constituents and other members of the public urging the board to do something different. Never. Even when we were talking about building a new jail, I didn't get 30 emails. And I'm sure all of the rest of you got those same 30 emails. I took the time to answer every one of them, because I believe when somebody sends me a letter, they deserve an answer. And if somebody calls me on the phone, I don't hang up on them. because I don't wanna answer their questions. So I don't hang up my email either. I think that, maybe a combination of what Mr. Undershoots has suggested and what Mr. Schneider suggested is a way forward to give us time to come up with a concrete plan that we can own with our constituents and with our employees. So I thank you for the time, and I would urge us to find a solution that doesn't terminate those 6 employees. Thank you.
Susan Hall?
Thank you. Friday, I was on my way to Marshfield Hospital with a friend, taking a friend, and I received a call. While I was at the hospital, I got 4 more calls. And I didn't know what was going on. And I've been dealing with these people going to the hospital for over a month. So I haven't gotten on top of it. I am new to this board this year, just since April. And I gotta admit, I don't understand all the numbers and everything that is tossed around. But I do know what's right and wrong. I'm a small business owner, and I would never do this to an employee. When I saw that, I was livid, and then I wasn't just livid, my blood turned blue. If my face turns red now, it's because I'm very angry. You don't treat people like this. These people have worked for years, and they've moved up the ladder. And that's why they came 5 days a week for years. We just don't throw them away. And then secondly, I'm a business owner. A year is broken up into 4 quarters. Why weren't we told at the end of the second quarter that we've got this deficit that's showing? It never came to us that we had a deficit. I did not know that. And I'm one of the people that vote on the purse of the county. That's just not right. Then I got to thinking, well, if this goes through, I'm gonna resign from the board. I don't want any part of it. Then I thought, no, I'm gonna stay. And I'm gonna fight for people like them. Some people may not like me here, but I respect your ideas too. And I think it's only right that we respect each other and work with each other. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I kind of agree with everything everybody said, but the problem that I'm having, coming from a different background, where 100 years ago, I was running a factory in Milwaukee. We had to lay off 20 people. We gave them 6 months. Some of them had been there over 20 years. The landscape changed. The business had to be, we called it right-sized. Their skills, while good, didn't fit the way things went. And here's my problem. We went into that with a defined plan, and I'm like Suzanne, I've only been here since April. But we didn't say, let's hang on to them until we can figure shit out. Pretty soon, you're gonna get to the point, Phil's point, that you're gonna have to take a hammer and smash that piggy bank. I haven't heard any, all I've heard, again, another saying that we used to use is, if ifs, ands, and buts were candy and nuts, we all have a Merry Christmas. There's nothing but ifs, ands, and buts. Keeping them around for 6 months is fine. You're gonna give them 5 months and you're still not gonna have a plan. Because nobody's gonna like it. I got about 32. There's 1,500 voters in the city of Ladysmith. That's 0.0008%. Not that they don't count, but that's not even a plurality. I'm letting people go is difficult. I went to one of the people we let go, ended up in the hospital with cancer. I went to see her. I knew her, I knew her family. She was gonna be out of a job, and she died before she was out of a job. I don't see a plan on the horizon. And there's people on this board that have been on a crap load of time. But, you know, I like Phil's plan, at least it gives us time. But it would be a sorry day if we get to the end of 6 months and we still don't have a plan. And I just, I'm not hearing anything, other than let's make a plan. In regards to the, I'll throw a little curve out here right now, the promissory note. Would that be an option to increase that versus pulling it out of general fund? No. That does go across the taxpayers' tax, if I'm understanding that correctly.
This is not one of the reasons that we can.
It wouldn't qualify, but could other funds be used to qualify in that?
Potentially. What is that? I mean, that's up to.
I don't like it, I'm just asking the question.
You'd be borrowing for operating costs.
Okay. And in regards to what everyone said in this room, I don't like the fact that we had to come to this decision the way we did. But I felt it was my job on finance personnel to come be fiscally responsible, and we discussed everything that everybody's questioning. Furlough days, we looked at shortening up the county services by so many hours a week. There was numerous reasons why people felt we shouldn't do that. And we didn't know where we started this budget process, I believe, in, let me correct me if I'm wrong, I think our first meeting was August. And as these budgets came together, that's when we realized this is a huge problem. And there were some huge increases. We brought up a lot of ideas to department heads that just didn't seem to take. There were some things that were thrown out on the table that nobody just really seemed to listen to until all of a sudden they realized that, hey, there might be some positions cut here. Then all of a sudden it seemed we got their attention, some of these department heads. I don't know. But in regard to some comments that have been made here today regarding how the budget should have been brought forward sooner or shortfalls, I think that's somebody really stirring the pot here pretty hard. Due to the fact that I remember when furlough days were brought to this county board, and the employees were I had a few come up to me that were rather unhappy about a couple furlough days being set up. And that, to my recollection, was not brought to the board before it was put through. Or the $500,000 that got pulled out of the highway fund over the years, out of the equipment fund, and used to go in to help balance the budget. Now, there's a lot of people that weren't on this board then yet. I was just getting on when I came privy to some of it. So pointing a finger in here isn't helping anything, and going online and pointing the finger isn't helping anything, and then turning around and saying that I'm not criticizing my fellow board members. That's hogwash. That's not settling anything in here. That's all I have to say.
I was waiting to see if anybody else wanted to talk first time around. Just basically a little more information. The general fund, as proposed, will only lose $8,750 if we spend it. According to the budget, the money it went up was $439,000 off. That's what it says in the paper here.
What document are you, or which page are you looking at?
I would presume it's from the general fund. Because I found, I don't have it, the general fund unassigned, probably don't find that quicker than I can. It's 14,000 plus at the beginning of 25, and it will be 15 million at the end of 25, and 14 million plus at the beginning.
Okay, so our budget, we are budgeting to use over $800,000 of fund balance for 2025.
I'm looking at the, yeah.
Right, you're strictly looking at the general fund, but looking at the big picture, the total fund balance that we are applying to balance our 2025 budget right now is over 800,000, so this would increase that.
Okay, so that's not in your budget for 25 then?
It's in the budget proposal that John read off. Yes, it is in the budget for 2025. If you look at the last page of the budget proposal summary.
Last page of the
budget proposal
the
summary.
short version.
The 805,796 is the general fund balance applied. So this would be increasing that amount.
But then why does it say the general fund as of 1/1/25 and 12/31/25? Doesn't reflect that apparently.
It does, but it factors in what's projected to be, used from this year yet. You know, when we're looking at these projections of that fund balance, it's using the assumptions that departments have put in to their budgets for the 2024 year-end projections.
I'm just reading what I see, and if that's not right, then there is definitely a problem going on here.
Do you have any of those numbers yet, Jim?
Yes, here, let me just go, I'll just hand you the pages that I have.
I'm sorry, Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I hear further discussion, I think it just punctuates what I've already said, that the board is not fully informed of how the deficit occurred, and we have not been asked what we think was the way to approach a solution. And now we're being asked to endorse the solution that was created by some of us. Again, I did say that I received over 30 letters, which I presume almost every board member received those same letters. I didn't say they were all from my constituents. So, they were from the public, and again, I have never received 30 emails or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 phone calls on any issue that I've been involved with for the last 40 years. So I believe that the public is concerned about our decisions, and they're probably even more concerned about how we are, what process we're using to arrive at those decisions. I think that the confusion about the general fund, the rule of thumb is a general fund should have at least 90 days of operating expenses at all times. How many operating days of expense are currently in the general fund?
It's significantly more than that. But the point is, if we keep depleting the general fund, what's the long-term plan here? We're already budgeting to use over $800,000 out of that general fund balance with no long-term plan in place to eliminate having to use fund balance going forward.
Would you say that we've been regularly spending down our fund balances?
The last several years, we have budgeted to spend the fund balance.
Would you say that we have been made aware of that and reminded when we were doing that for the last 3 or 4 years that those were not endless and that we needed to start planning a different path forward, or did we wait until we had a $2 million deficit before we woke up?
I guess I don't understand your question.
If we were spending down our fund balances, as you say, if we keep doing that, we're not gonna have any. Were we being told 2 years ago that we were spending down our fund balances and that eventually we wouldn't have them? And we needed to start planning 2 years ago for what possibly might happen now?
I would say yes. The reason we were spending fund balance in prior years, we put levy into the highway equipment fund last year, and that's part of the reason why we were spending fund balance. We knew that the hospital demolition and asbestos abatement was on the horizon and that there was potential fund balance usage for that. We didn't borrow, because we were planning for the jail process. We pushed off borrowing, so we utilized fund balance for that.
Did you work on a plan those 2 years? Is what we just did in this last 3 months, was that the culmination of a 2-year plan that was put into place to address this issue, or did we just come up with a plan a couple of months ago and now we're where we are?
So the problem is there is a lack of a plan. There was no plan for the jail project not moving forward, so that resulted in significantly increased costs for out-of-county housing. So that's a big part of the reason why we have this huge deficit for our budget. We didn't foresee having the high-cost placements for HHS. And that's part of the reason why at the last board meeting, you guys approved that short-term borrowing for $500,000.
We have known for years, and you can ask former board members and long-term board members, that all of the counties around us have been struggling with out-of-county placements. Our Health and Human Services Department has done a tremendous job of preventing out-of-county placements. We have been putting a couple $100,000 into the Health and Human Services budget every year for that possibility, and at the end of the year, we've taken that $200,000 back and put another $200,000 into the next budget, and we've never built a reserve fund for that contingency, and now when it hit us, we act like we were surprised.
So that $200,000.
We're not surprised that it happened. We should have been anticipating it, because it's happening in every county around us, and they are indeed borrowing money to cover out-of-county placements.
And that's what we're doing now, yes.
Right. But my point is, again, if we knew we were depleting our fund balances 2 years ago, then we should be looking at a 2-year plan that took 2 years to develop to address this, and we're not. We're looking at something that came up about 2 months ago.
Well, and the plan was, the understanding that we would be borrowing for the jail, so that's why we were using that fund balance rather than bonding for all these smaller dollar amounts. So then this year we did issue bond funds to pay for some of our projects. But that $200,000 that has been set aside as reserve for HHS is projected to be spent and then some in this year.
But in previous years, instead of saying, okay, let's roll that $200,000 over.
And we did roll that $200,000 over.
And add another $100,000 to it, so that eventually, by small increments, when the $1 million year came up, we would have.
And we have rolled that $200,000 over. The last 2 years, HHS.
So we didn't add to it.
Well, no, but we had enough in contingency, and, you know, revenues in excess of expenditures in other budgets to where, when I brought the budget amendment recommendations to you, I included leaving that $200,000 intact. But the way it stood, it technically should have been reduced by the HHS usage of levy in excess of what was budgeted. So that 200,000 did remain intact.
You know, I'm concerned because, you know, say, where are we gonna find the money?
Well, what's your
Somehow we
recommendation?
miraculously found $206,000 last month to recommend raises for all the employees who weren't getting terminated. How did we find that? Do we still have that?
That was going to be, they had approved it out of contingency, and the plan was to increase the usage of fund balance with an amendment today.
And the plan. That's not when it was recommended.
That was what was discussed at the finance committee.
That's the problem. It was presented to the
We can
board.
go back and forth here all day. Can we move on, Mr. Russell?
Are you saying she should come up with a plan that you just said the county board didn't have a chance to come up with a plan for? Is that what I heard? You just complained about the board not being able to make a plan, but I think you just insinuated that she should have made the plan that you asked yourself to make.
Well, first of all, I would say, I'm sorry that the chair cut me off. However, it's my understanding that we should be not addressing one another in our debate, but, what I believe I said, and I hope I say, was that this board should have been directed and led by our finance department to be planning for this contingency a long time ago. I agree. I'm not blaming anyone and insinuating that she should have been presenting us with a plan. Certainly I can say that I believe she should have been recommending that the board and the finance committee be working on a plan over the last 2 years instead of waiting until we have a crisis.
I don't think nobody's arguing that. I don't think anybody's arguing what you're saying. As far as that,
I'm gonna have to leave before it pumps.
So the suggestion by Mr. Undershoots and Mr. Schneider that we not implement terminations and give time for a better plan for the next 6 months seems to me to be a prudent and wise recommendation, and I would support it.
Mr. Meyer?
I heard a lot about a plan so far since we started this discussion. Finance and personnel brought one, some of the public, and it sounds like some of the board doesn't like it. So don't say a plan wasn't brought. It was what we thought fit at the time. Maybe this will open up a really hard discussion going forward and something else will come good out of it. I'm not opposed to that at all. But it was our job to bring this budget in here and try to get as close as we could. And you can say I'm dumb, whatever, I really don't care. But we needed to come in with some ideas to get this thing closer in line. Another thing I hear in this discussion so far, a lot of people are grumbling, but some of these budgets that are way out of whack, weren't they presented at the committee level before they came to the board, before they came to finance? So people that were on HHS didn't see that it was doubling? People that were on emergency management services didn't see that that budget was through the roof? And you wanna put it all on finance and personnel? I'm not on those committees. Boy, you guys are quick to dish the pile of poop over on us. You guys presented these budgets, they came to us, they're supposed to have been through their committees. So if you want finance and personnel to babysit every committee out here on a regular basis, I think you guys are asking an awful lot. So I think some other people in this room need to pony up to the table here. Instead of pointing a finger, because that's not solving any problem that we have in front of us right now.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, I'm 15 seconds away from 111 to
Ms. Good.
I'm on the Health and Human Services Board, and one thing is we have got few people that are so severely in need of help that they have to go to the most expensive place to try to get them under control so they can be moved to some less secure place. And there are 3 of them this year, and it's $20,000 in money that just came out of our budget. The state only pays so much, and they just, we have to pick up the rest. And we did pass a resolution to send to the state and tell them, for these exceptional cases, we need help. Don't just dump it on us.
Yep, I just emailed it to her, and I'm just double checking that.
Unless anybody else. Mr. Whiteway?
I have 2 budget amendments, but I don't know if now is the time to do it, or after we pass the current one that we're on.
Then you can amend it again, yes.
So wait until we approve it. Thank you.
So, yeah, just for, the reason this took so long is because to add those back in, you have to go back to the 5 lines to add in where cops will secure if I could food it, all that sort of stuff. So, the actual motion, if you guys would agree, would be to, if I add up all these numbers, it's $448,659. Slightly off, but that's given the wages and the add back. Yeah, it's, $900 more. $448,659. So, yeah, that's, change the, can you write on that, change the top one? To $448,659.
I was just going by the figures I got.
Yeah, but when I add in all the numbers that she gave me, that will be quicker, if that works.
We discussed it.
So, then, can you folks all read that? So, it's a motion by Schneider, second by Williams, to remove $448,659 from the general fund and add $56,797 back into property. And I'm not gonna go through the small lines, but that's what makes up the wages. Then add $69,276 back into land records, $85,790 back into IT, $81,136 back into the jail, $95,660 back into highway, and $60,000 back into HHS. Correct, Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? So. Oh, no, that's fine. The numbers you gave me,
Yeah, okay, so I'm just looking at the amount from general fund, and I'm seeing $447,989, but that's just. If I make it bigger, the whole thing won't be on this screen.
You want
Do you want me to zoom into each department for you? Let me know when to scroll. Scroll already?
Is this in perpetuity?
If you're asking me this.
I'm asking.
Okay.
I guess I'm asking Phil.
This is for a year. And there's no reason that there can't be recommendations made in the first 2 years, or 2 months, 4 months, whatever, just try and straighten this mess out.
Is that written into this, stated in here that it's for a year? It needs to be stated for a year.
So, for clarification, okay, this increases the budgets of those departments. It does not.
I get that.
What?
For 2025.
For 2025. It does not, there's nothing on the agenda for the reinstatement of any positions or anything. This is solely on the monetary payment of those.
Got it.
If something, understand?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Moore?
Just for clarification, for Schneider's amendment, putting this money back into the separate budgets, but that doesn't mean that these positions are reinstated?
Correct.
How do we do that?
So either the personnel committee needs to re-meet and rescind what they did, or a resolution of the county board has to come back. No, because this is monetary only, it has.
What would they do with the money if they don't reinstate the police?
I'm
Afraid to ask?
no, that.
I would think that somebody could figure out what the intention is.
The highway was just 95,000 even. That's our difference.
Exactly.
So then you gotta take the top one and deduct that from 600, so.
Well, I have 447,999, I believe I
Okay,
missed
yeah,
the rounding.
that'll do that. 447,999.
447,999.
Sure, you kick me out.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Willingham.
We heard comments earlier in the public hearing portion of the meeting that suggested that some of the expenses of these employees are covered by state revenues. So that, for instance, of highway workers, when we eliminated that position, we did not eliminate 100% of that person's salary from the levy, correct?
Well, correct, but obviously someone else would be doing those duties. So,
Maybe.
well, okay, so you're saying that the state highways won't get plowed?
Yeah, my street.
That was the rationale, is that the intent was to remove that much of levy, so that's what was.
There was $100,000 in revenues that came into the sheriff's department from the young persons that they generated. Is that still in the budget as a revenue?
I believe when those position restructuring were discussed, somebody else would be taking over those duties. It's not that we would be losing that revenue.
Somebody else that already has a full-time job?
Gotcha.
So we're not only laying off people, but we're piling more work on the people that are probably working pretty hard already.
It's not included.
Okay, I think it's in order, we could probably vote on this.
And this is on the amendment to add that
Behind us.
to the budget, so this is on the amendment only.
Yes, I'd just like to correct a little typo on my little pad here. It says $4,447,000. It's a little high. The correct number then should be $447,999.
Correct.
We'll get it, we'll get it.
Correct. So again, you're removing $447,999 from the general fund and dividing that among each.
Okay, so I think in order to vote on this, any more questions? If not, we can vote.
You got it, yeah, you vote Morgan.
Kurt?
No, it went. Cause it voted for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I can touch that. Now I did.
The right one?
Well, if it's not
13 yes, 6 no, pass by.
The budget as amended to include that, yes.
If they lose their jobs, big deal.
Mr. Chairman, my amendment button isn't working yet, but I would like to make an amendment to that tax amendment to make it for 6 months. The reason being is, I don't think in another year we need to lay off 12 people and then try to reposition them within the county because it's not going to fix the budget issue. If we find a bunch of money in 6 months, we don't, we could always change that, but I think we need to do it for 6 months. And again, 6 months, there's gonna be all kinds of open positions, including the county. That would give plenty of opportunity for someone to apply for one of the open positions, rather than just eliminating it when somebody's up a creek without a paddle. So I think we're on the same page here, it's just, we also gotta fix the budget issue, so we're not, next year, we're gonna get rid of 12 people. I don't think that's right or fair to dig ourselves into more issues, so.
Hold on, but again, these positions have not been reinstated yet.
I'm talking about the funding.
Okay, so you want to now make an amendment to the amendment that we just had and reduce it by 50%.
Correct. That way, it would give personnel, leverage, if they come up with something else, but, right now, personnel hasn't been voted to, keep those positions, but I think that would be an easy meeting to say, hey, it's funded for 6 months, let's extend them 6 months, give everybody an opportunity to apply for something else. That way, the 6 people aren't losing their jobs, we're eliminating positions, but eventually every one of these people has a job.
So then it would be to amend the previous amendment to reduce all the numbers by 50%.
Can't amend an amendment after it's been passed. Needed to amend it.
But again, he can go create a new one that changes all those numbers without calling it an amendment. So I don't care what we call it, but it's to change the budget to reduce all those numbers to 50%.
I mean, the idea of let's just not do anything and hope that it gets better is great, but we can't lay off 12 people next year because we didn't use it this year. And if somebody's got a suggestion in the budget that actually fixes it, I'm all for that. If we can find $500,000, great. But the idea that for years we've been doing this is just draw down the fund balance, keep adding more employees, keep burdening the taxpayers more, and now we're out of room, you can't even burden the taxpayers anymore, it's not a viable solution.
Two options. You can either call it out of order because it should have been amended to last month, or allow it to proceed.
Making it a separate amendment to change the numbers to 6 months.
I understand. Okay. And you're the chair, if you want to challenge the chair, you can do that, that's your job. Say it loud.
I call out of order because the motion should have been made.
You're gonna rule it out of order as the presiding chair, yes. You can't hear? Couldn't hear?
Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, if I heard you correctly, you said that it's not appropriate or not legal actually to amend an amendment.
It is.
However, Mr. Bunterschutz could propose a new motion.
And so the chair has stated that he's ruling it out of orders that should have amended the previous one. If you would like to challenge the position of the chair, you can do that, but he's moving this and saying it's out of order, it should have been done on the previous motion.
But does that still give Mr. Undershoots the option to make a new motion?
The chair said that not as to that issue.
I thought it was, yeah, I thought he was calling it out of order to amend the amendment.
Correct. So if
So
you
how
could-
does that apply to a brand new motion?
Yeah, if you could make a motion, and if the chair is going to deem that out of order because it's a new motion in the form of an amended of a previous, that's the chair's prerogative.
Chairman, at the risk of having something happen differently than what I would want to have happen, I believe that it would be in order to reconsider. Someone make a motion to reconsider the previous amendment.
It could.
That would be in order.
But then again, somebody who voted in favor of the previous motion has to make that motion.
So you're calling? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're asking for somebody that actually voted for the previous motion to make a motion,
To reconsider, that is the only way you can bring it back, yes.
and I will make that motion.
Okay, you have a motion on the floor to reconsider the previous motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to reconsider the previous motion.
The second isn't required to be someone who voted in favor of them. I don't think.
No, correct.
Thanks. Just covered.
So, you guys have, are you ready, Ken?
Well, we're sitting, the only way I can change this stuff is if there's an amendment. It's not,
Okay, as far as your software goes.
it's, yes. I
Okay,
can-
so
I can-
if you check the amendment box, then we'll fix it when you do the minutes.
Yes.
Hit,
Mr.
Tom,
Goodall, hit
Tom, hit the amend button, please.
Thank you. And that is
The
to.
motion to reconsider the previous amendment.
And again, this is only $1 issue.
Well, and again, the issue, the vote that's gonna be is to reconsider whether you wanna, what's that?
This is only putting the funding.
Understood, but we gotta get the reconsideration back first.
Okay, it's sitting.
Motion by Mr. Krull and Mr. Russell.
And this is to reconsider the previous amendment that was just voted on. If we're ready, go ahead. You ready, Ken?
Yeah.
Go ahead and vote.
So, I just wanna be clear, so we are voting on what Mr. Undershoots.
No, you are voting on whether you want to debate
Okay.
or reconsider, correct?
Voting yes, passed by majority.
So the previous amendment is now back up for debate. So you have to hit the amend button. You have the floor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, now.
Okay. Then he's making an amendment to that previous resolution to reduce all numbers by 50%. Correct?
Right, so. We eliminated.
The second by.
Oh, yes, now you can amend the
Correct,
amendment.
correct, correct.
Second by Mr. Meyer. Is everybody under the understanding the correct what we're saying here? Say that again.
The very first motion, you bring it on the floor, not just amendment.
My bad.
So we got,
I just
there
want
you
to-
go,
So I have a
Alex
motion
seconded.
seconded by Mr. Alec Hampton. That was previous one before, so that's my fault.
I just make an amendment to reduce that to 6 months, so we're not laying off 12 people next year. This gives time for people to get other positions, because what we're trying to do is save good, hard-working people. But if we can't afford to just keep spending and we end up laying off a dozen people next year, that just doesn't work either. So the amendment would be to fund it for 6 months, and if department heads figure a place to cut in 6 months, it can always be a reconsideration. And again, we're only voting on the funding, we're not voting on the positions anyways, that would have to go through personnel. But I think this would be more sustainable, so we don't, continue to do the same thing that's been going on for the last forever long amount of years. The population of Rusk County has continued to shrink, and the spend by the government has continued to grow, and that is unsustainable.
Susan.
Phil?
Yes.
Question on that.
Yep.
We're not actually saying that we are going to still delete those positions, am I correct?
Correct, we're only voting on the funding, but it funded for 6 months, which means those people would have an opportunity to apply for any open position that came up in the next 6 months.
Does that mean though that those jobs are gonna be terminated?
No, that
This
is
is nothing
something,
about the termination.
personnel
or
still has
any of
that decision. We could vote to fund it for 10 years, and personnel could still
Alright.
eliminate those positions, but this would give them an option to work with where we're not laying off 12 people next year.
Does everybody understand?
So, in the previous resolution, they voted to take 440. Okay, all those numbers are gonna be 50% of what was on that.
So a yes vote cuts it to 50%.
Yes.
And a no vote keeps it at the full.
Yes.
But it has nothing to do with the position. Just so we're all understood on it, nothing to do with positions. Push your button, Dave.
Thank you. It doesn't make sense to me to have them put money into the budget and not at least say something about what you're gonna do with that money. So theoretically, we just gave departments, more money than what in the current budget for 2025. Right now, they can do whatever they want to with that money, right? Go buy a squad car instead of filling a position, they could do that.
They can't flex expenses between wages and other expenses.
But I guess my point is that.
I think what you're trying to say is this going specifically to the wages, or is it a free-for-all, see how fit?
Going into those line items for personnel in those departments.
Correct, that's what those specific line items are for, yes.
You good, Dave? Are you good?
No, I'm not good.
That's all I was gonna clarify was that it is put in those specific positions for,
But
wages.
I guess
But we, at the budget meeting, we cannot vote on personnel positions.
your statement, I'm not to be, too critical, but I would challenge whether not doing this means that we will have to lay off 12 people next year. I don't know that that's an accurate.
If there's another budget line that you suggest we cut and run, I'm open for.
Okay, this is
But I guess
off the
This
topic
getting
at
way
this
off,
juncture.
yeah, this getting way off sideways here.
But I also think that you were, in your rhetoric, you were suggesting that this would give 6 months for them to apply for other jobs that are open in their department. And I don't think, my intention is not to limit the use of these funds for these employees to apply for other positions. I think that somewhere along the line, Personnel Committee needs to go back and decide whether they want to persist in the current, position or change that position and come back to the board for the board's approval.
Correct, Mr. William, please. Mr. Schneider.
Running it for half a year means that something has to happen in 6 months, because we don't have salaries for it. If we improve, if we can find some funds, we transfer money back in there in the midstream? I just think it makes more sense to do it, work on it. You'll probably come to some conclusions of probably doing something in the year, but you're covered for a year. That's why I don't like this at all.
There's nothing else to discuss or comment, we can vote on this. Nine yes, and no fails.
Correct. Yeah, sure. Let's move on to somebody else and then we gotta get the floor though first, Terry. All on
They're gonna make a remote. Yeah, probably.
Yes, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Motion by Mr. Whitman, is there a second?
No, we don't know what his motion is.
State your amendment.
I have two amendments on the rate this is going. Okay, number one is I would like to amend the budget line for the jail out of county housing 100-22-52112-531 to reduce it from 225,000 to 150,000. All current prisoners are now housed at Rusk County. There is no out-of-county housing. It's been that way since last Wednesday. There are currently 27 prisoners here, and only 2 of them are female, which is allowed for changing around and still meeting the classification rules and everything. So,
Just for point of order, is you wanna make the motion and then you gotta get a second, and then you can explain why you want to do that. But your motion is to decrease line
100-22-52112-531 from 225,000 to 150,000.
And that is the out-of-county,
housing jail.
Jail housing.
That's his motion.
Yep, there's a motion by Mr. Wedwick.
Second by Mr. Kudo. So now we can discuss. Mr. Russell?
So, you're saying it's gonna stay that way the whole year?
No, I'm saying that there's a communication problem back in September when they were trying to do the budgets, and they wanted to reduce the out of jail housing down to 150, but it never got brought forward. Now that with only being 2 females in jail, they've got more room for more classifications, and so all out-of-county prisoners have been brought back that were in Chippewa, and well, and then what we have here. And like I say, I believe as of today, right now, it was 27 prisoners and 2 females, so it's because there's no guarantee that tomorrow, when 10 women are locked in, brought in or something like that, then they would have to do it. They're thinking 150,000 might be okay for the year, so they're trying to reduce the costs.
But they're gonna get to the end of the year and that scenario flipped, and now they're 100K underwater.
Don't know that. I mean, if you wanted to leave it at 225,000.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, the sheriff is thinking that 150 might be reasonable. Like you say, as of last Wednesday, all the out-of-county prisoners were brought back. They're double bunking. They've got, again, with only 2 women, they have much more room to move stuff around, and you all know about all the 18 or so many classifications. And again, this was supposed to have been brought up in September, but there was miscommunication, it was never brought forward, so I was asked to bring it forward.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm gonna ask a question out there and somebody can answer it after I'm done, so that I don't start a debate back and forth, Christine. I would like to know, if possible, how this happened, because these budgets were sent back to departments with asked for a 15% cut, and the sheriff's department came back with theirs being raised. So it's not like they didn't have a chance to look this over. It sure is strange that when the finance committee voted against pursuing the jail back in May or whenever it was, that suddenly we found out we were housing inmates out of county. Now the personnel committee makes some cuts, and finance went along with them, and now all of a sudden, we don't need that much money to house inmates out of jail, and they're all coming back. It's a pretty big blunder when it affected someone's, in a sense, it had some bearing on positions here. I'm just throwing that out there for everyone to ponder. No one has to reply if they don't want to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with Jim's thoughts. I'm confused as a few months back, this was brought before the whole board and we were told double bunking was not allowed because of the issues in the jail, the classifications, and now it is allowed. It seems like somebody's playing a game and I don't like it. And I think that's how we end up in the budget issues, is people playing games with their budgets. I don't like it. That needs to stop.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so the motion by Wedwick, second by Kudo, to decrease budget line 100-22-52112 which is, yes, 531, which is the out of county jail expense from 225,000 to 150,000.
Mr. Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm just curious, if this were to pass, that would mean that there would be X amount of dollars that would be available to possibly apply to something else.
Or reduce the amount of fund balance being utilized. However, I believe that the rent in the Gates building is not budgeted for the sheriff's department as well. So the sheriff is going to have to start paying rent in the Gates building, and that was not in the original budget because that was determined later on in
That was determined
after the budgets had after finance had approved the budget.
When will that start?
January 1st.
And how much was
$1,000 a year.
Task at hand, let's stay with where we're at here, come back in. So, that's the question. Are we ready to vote? If so, we can.
Are you having problems with that?
Yes.
Cause it does. This is city specific.
The sensing, the sensor part, so because it's
Yeah,
sensitive,
I agree.
it's kinda like when you got a bad. And it starts running around your screen.
Just
You have to sneak up on your hammer. You have to sneak up on your button.
Neil.
What's some other appendages to work?
17 yes.
They just voted for it.
Yeah, I have another one.
Yes, I do.
It didn't say that amendment on there.
But I can't. It's like
It just says, I mean, it says, made motion to amend, but it's like.
We're back to the original, you can amend again.
Yes, well, it's amending the non-county housing. It makes sense, it just didn't decrease it. I can't think of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, what's your motion, Terry?
My motion is to amend the animal shelter, the city portion that they are supposed to pay. It's line number 100-471-47340-000. To remove the city share of 60,000 to zero, because last night at the city council meeting, the city voted to allocate no money to pay the animal shelter. And that's in their 2025 budget that was passed by city council last night. So therefore, we need to take it out of that line item I just gave you of $60,000, because the city will not pay that.
Okay, so I
And it-
need a second.
Hold on, is then your, to say the motion, is it then to increase a separate line? Or you're just taking it out?
I'm just taking it out.
Okay, okay.
Would we be increasing our dog license revenue? Because then we would be getting those fees. Cause you said 60,000.
Yeah, that's what you have in there right now, right?
63,934.
Okay, then 63,934.
934.
Again,
Take
the
it
city
out.
council
We'll
voted.
take it out, Terry?
Take it out, or make that line zero.
Make that line zero. I need a second on what Terry has just said. Second by Mr. Hampton. Now, if you want to discuss it or questions, go ahead.
Again, we're removing it because the city council, we had heard about this, but it was the city finance committee had left it in. But last night, the city council, when they did their budget for 2025, they removed it entirely, so we are not getting any funding from the city for the animal shelter, from this line item. So we need to remove it. What did you say, Jamie? To increase another line item, or just?
It's gonna,
Yeah.
right now, the city of Ladysmith retains the dog license fees that they collect and they don't pay them over to us. So we would still be getting, statutorily, that's required to be paid to the county, so we'd still get that portion, but
It's not that much, I don't.
yeah, it's a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, so I guess my thing is just to remove it from this line item, which would raise the other.
So it would increase
would increase the levy.
I know, I'm waiting for Terry to finish up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, if I'm hearing this correctly, then they are pulling out. So we are no longer a joint venture with them regarding the animal shelter?
I wouldn't go that far yet. They have given us notice that they intend to terminate the animal shelter agreement as of 12/31. There's a lot of other legal things that would have to happen, and that which would be forthcoming from the legal counsel and everything. There are a lot of other issues involved with that. But the city has simply said, we're not paying any. They're claiming they're being double taxed because part of the county has a budget, it's got the animal shelter expenses in there. Part of the county budget goes on the city tax statement. So they're saying that if we paid 40% that they were supposed to have paid, and they've done for over 40 years, that they're being double taxed. Well, we've never gotten a number about exactly how much is that per household or whatever. So that's a big blow, you know, to the animal shelters. So right now, they're saying they've given us notice that they plan to terminate the agreement as of 12/31, and last night they voted to not pay the, well, this was in effect the 40%. So all the ramifications of that and everything are not known yet. There will be consequences, and who takes over, who does what. There's loans on the animal shelter. There's a lot of unanswered questions that we don't have the answers to right now, and a lot of it we'll have to have legal opinions on.
Because in the existing agreement, is it not part of their responsibility to pick up funding, a certain percentage of funding for it?
Right, but they voted to terminate that agreement at 12/31.
Okay. So we're gonna sit without an agreement. Well, they're December 31st.
Correct.
Pardon?
They're stepping away from it.
Yeah, they're pulling out.
They're pulling, so it sounds to me like they're gonna be pulling out 100%, and granted, like you're saying, there's legalities involved in that or whatever. How long, did their agreement expire in December 31st, is that?
It's a deal.
Yeah, so it was, they had to provide notice of, wanting to negotiate by, don't quote me on the dates, but by May of this year. They did that, and then you've met with them, to no avail, so they did the proper, either party could have terminated that by providing the other party notice. And again, don't quote me on the dates, but I think it had to be by May of this year. Jim, do we have to do anything on the bottom line, otherwise?
It would be just increasing the amount of fund balance being used. Cause it would increase the amount of levy, yes. Increase the fund balance.
I wasn't quite done.
What are you gonna say?
So, if they're terminating their agreement, does that mean then after December 31st, that representatives from the city that were on the animal control board should no longer be present at meetings?
I think it did.
Those are all the things that have to do, again, they just did this last night.
Right, decided.
Because it's co-owned by the city and the county, so there's a whole lot of issues that this creates.
So are you currently trying to deal with these issues then,
And have been since May.
Since May, okay. Thank you.
So we have the motion to, remove $63,934 from line 100-41-47340-000, which is the city's portion of the animal shelter budget.
Thank you. Just one more question, I promise, last one. So, by that removal of that, that is an income line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's, thank you, that's it.
Alright, any other comment?
Just a question, so is this taking more out of the general fund to cover it, or is the motion only to not plan for the extra 63,000 amount?
I believe the motion is to not plan for what, how to make that decision.
Okay, so we're gonna have to raise the pot. Okay, cause we can't spend more money right now, obviously. I think it would've been wise to attempt to maybe get along with the city a little better about this, rather than just telling them, we're gonna make a full-time position and you're gonna pay it, because now here we are by,
Any other questions? If not, we can vote on it.
Or just look at me.
19 yes, passed by majority.
Now we're gonna go back to the original. Okay. I put as amended.
Try that. I don't wanna touch that.
So now we're back to the original, to adopt the 2025 budget. I have a motion by Mr. Undershoot and a second by Mr.
So, any other discussion on the resolution to adopt the 2025 budget as amended? Exactly.
You got a button there? Mr. Whitewright?
Shouldn't there be something about, this is not my thing, but shouldn't there be something about, paying for the Gates building rent for next year? That's not in any budget or anything else, shouldn't that get added?
That's the sheriff's problem, not mine.
I mean, I only had two things I was supposed to take care of. And thank you all for taking care of them. But, if we've heard that next year we're gonna be paying, about $60,000 in rent on the Gates building.
68, 63, what's the exact dollar?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not involved in this.
So I mean, the practical answer is no, you don't need to, then it's in the sheriff to figure out how to pay that. And either come back with amendments to the budget to do that, so you don't need to do that.
Okay, I just thought to get that in the budget, get it. Thank you.
Miss Susan Voss.
I'm confused on what we're gonna be voting for.
Okay, so this is the budget that was sent to you on, and that was in the paper and that was read this morning, okay? With the edits that were just made here, with the increase of the 449,000, with the increase to the animal shelter, or the decrease to the animal shelter, with the decrease to the sheriff's budget. Or, I'm sorry, increase, but yes, it's the budget that you guys all got with the 3 changes you guys made this morning.
So this is gonna finalize.
The budget.
It's gonna put the budget to bed.
Yes.
Not to sleep, just a bit.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we can vote on it. Trees for the nothing in for a new one. Just saying.
Is it not working yet, Kurt? You want me? Okay.
16 yes, passed by majority.
Do you want 5 minutes?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I don't know what numbers are not yours.
I'll send one to you. I don't know why. Sometimes I like to learn, I just feel really good. Good job. Yeah, I don't know why we well, yeah, you get DHHS had a guy in Germany that, you know, he didn't have it's like, okay, we got this. And if it's good for me, we would have an issue, you know? So it's just the turn from life, you
Pick up and resume where we left off.
That's the big difference.
Amendment to ad hoc reviewing committee ordinance. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Willingham, is there a second?
I'm wanting to make a motion, not a motion to adopt a resolution.
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't hear you.
What's that?
I did not hear you.
I said I want to make a motion, but not a motion to adopt a resolution.
I think the motion has to be on the floor first before you can make a motion on the floor.
Well, it is now, Mr. Russell seconded. So now you wanna amend? I'm assuming? Mr. Willingham?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, these, same amendments or resolutions were presented to the board and we postponed them until the, I believe that we should postpone them indefinitely until we have a better idea how we want our staff to handle hiring, firing. Every time you give authority to your staff, that is authority that's held by the board, you need to have a set of guidelines and policies that guide that staff and how they use the authority that you have given them. If you give them the authority to hire people for the county, and don't tell them what standards and what policies are acceptable to the board, you have a problem. Anytime you have a strong executive, you need a set of management limitations policies. every policy guide, governance manual that you will ever read will tell you that it's important for the board to provide their staff with what is and what is not acceptable to the board. So I would give you an example. Suppose we advertise to hire a position, and that advertisement said that candidates would be required to have a 4-year degree in a specific discipline and at least 3 years of experience in that field. As it stands right now, the county board has told our staff that they must not alter those requirements. So they get a bunch of candidates, you remember now that all the people that apply for this job, whoever gets an interview will be selected by staff, not by committees, not by anyone or even knows who is and who is not being selected. I would remind the board that the board paid out a rather substantial penalty a couple of years ago because someone who applied for a job believed that they were discriminated against because they didn't get an interview. And the county settled that claim for a substantial amount of money. So there is a risk at hand if we allow staff to make employment decisions based on their judgment substituted for ours without any guidance whatsoever. So I am suggesting that the county develop, if we want to do this, the county develop a set of management limitations policies that spells out how staff are supposed to use the authority that we're giving them to hire and terminate our employees. Therefore, I am offering a motion to postpone indefinitely the resolutions 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So, that, for your computer purposes, you have to hit the amend button then. David had the floor, made a motion to postpone indefinitely, which will die unless there is a second.
I'll just verbally make that second if it's not working on that.
No, it is.
You can't hit the.
It just doesn't do it.
Oh, she's getting.
Okay.
So are we voting on the first one?
No, he made a motion to amend to postpone this indefinitely. It's not really amended, to postpone indefinitely. So now you guys can discuss the motion to postpone or the main motion itself.
Mr. Russell.
So, I'm really concerned about the abuse of power by people. So, Ashley, how many people have you unilaterally hired since your tenure? You didn't talk to anybody, you just went out and said, I like that person, I'm hiring. Well, now I'm really confused. How many of you unilaterally terminated during your time here? Can you show me then in the handbook where it says that on your own, you have the sole authority to hire and fire?
There is not, and if I can answer that question too, Mr. Willingham did state that, one of the concerns is that how the selection process, and we have no policy and procedure in place. We do have a whole chapter of that in our handbook that talks about the recruitment, selection, and affirmative action and the process that we do. So right now, the process is as stated in our handbook, that the human resources manager and department administrator select the best candidates to be interviewed by reviewing applications and recognizing attributes that are necessary for successful job performance. And then it goes on further to talk about selection methods, what the HR manager is responsible for, notification of applicants, talks about the ad hoc interviewing committee and all of that. So I just do want to correct that. Mr. Willingham, you did say that, by changing this process, then HR would have that power. Well, according to our current policies and practices, currently right now, HR and the department head do review all those applications to determine. So we do have, a policy in place. And then also as just a reminder to everybody, this is talking about interviews. It has nothing to do with terminations. Terminations, that was passed months ago, here at the full board, and that process was already in our handbook. There's a full process on what we do for termination. So this is just interviewing.
So speaking just to interviews, can you read where it says that you can unilaterally bypass the recommendation of the department manager who we hired to hire and fire people and trust their judgment?
I don't see anything in here about it.
I'm baffled.
Mr. Meyer.
I remember back, I thought the whole reason this board brought in human resources so that to streamline things like this and so that committees didn't make boo-boos. And because when I first got on this board, there was a lot of boo-boos. A lot of them. That I haven't heard anybody really want to talk about them up to this point, but which we can. But I know I heard a lot of things going on, more than what there is now. And, so, I mean, we brought this person in, or this position in, to streamline this process. And to Mike Russell's point last month, what qualifications do a lot of us have on these committees to be interviewing people and asking the right questions and doing it correctly? I'm sure there's probably a few of us in this room that maybe, I'm just gonna throw it out there, never hired one individual in their own personal effort. And there's some of us that have, but we all have different things we look for. So, that's my thoughts on it.
Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I'm sorry.
I said Mr. Russell.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So, to Jim's point, as far as interviewing goes, you get into tons of trouble by asking the wrong questions. And I've hired a whole load of people over the years. And most people don't know what questions they cannot or should not ask. And all of a sudden they ask it to a candidate, you cannot take that back once it's out there. And they don't get hired, and that's when they go to Habush and Dates.
Mr. Willingham.
Once again, we've had a process in place that reduced the number of people that were involved in the hiring interviews. We called that an ad hoc committee. Member of the personnel committee, part of the personnel committee members' responsibilities was to guide the ad hoc committee in the exact areas that Mr. Russell has suggested need guidance, not to ask questions that shouldn't be asked. I'm not asking that board members or committee members just ask whatever questions they want to ask. The committee should, ad hoc committee should sit down together and determine what questions are going to be asked. Probably with input from, perhaps from the HR manager and the department head as questions that would be relevant to that person's performance expectations. The problem is that we don't have a set of policies that limit the way in which management uses the authority that we are giving them. And my example, again, if you allow one or two people who are staff people, and that doesn't make them bad people by any means. But if they can alter the requirements for a candidate's hiring, maybe the board doesn't want them to do that. Or maybe the board wants to set a set of guidelines and says, okay, if you got a person who has an appropriate degree, but they only have 2 years of experience instead of 3, but they've been successful with that 2 years of experience, yeah, that would be a good decision. But you're giving them the authority to waive any requirements that they might choose to waive. Without any guidelines telling them what is and what isn't acceptable to the board. One of the policies that they are suggesting that we change. Currently, the policy says that we will check people's references. They're asking us to change that policy to may check references. To the employers in this group, if there are any, would you ever hire anyone without checking their references? Absolutely not. Why you would give somebody discretionary authority to determine whether they should check people's references or not baffles me. That just doesn't make any sense. That tells me that I'm not certain that appropriate reasoning has gone into this process. And that's why I wanted to postpone it, and obviously no changes were made or suggested, and this just brought back on the agenda again today. So again, my motion is to postpone indefinitely. The Personnel Committee and the HR manager and the administrative coordinator want to put together a set of reasonable and acceptable policies to limit management's discretion and present them to the board. Great. I would be in favor of ceding some of our authority to staff. In the absence of that guidance, I'm not. And I'm not questioning the professional credentials of our staff. I'm just telling you that how they use the authority that we give them needs to be limited by our preferences and our tolerance for changes. We have a set of policies that determine how the finance department manages our finances. We give a lot of authority, which we should, to our finance director, but the financial policies and procedures spell out to that person how they can use their authority and how they can't use their authority. So they would be, we have spending limits that need various levels of approval by committees or by the board. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time more debating this. I'm just simply saying that I think we need to take a step back in this process and have a chance to give staff to bring us the kind of policies that I think would be acceptable. I know that some other counties have policy governance manuals, and they have management limitations policies, and Price County does. Those management limitations policies and their policy governance manual applies to how their county administrator carries out that responsibility. That I'll leave it up to you if you want to give away. And I think again, it's a recipe for disaster.
So to Dave's point in regards to saying that.
Mr. Rusk.
Yeah.
1 second, please. Is there anybody else that wants to say something before I let Mr. Russell continue on?
Ramble on. I'm gonna ramble on.
I'm trying to follow a guideline here, so. If not, no, you can, Mr. Russell.
So in regards to a couple of the changes in the policy, most companies now use the word may in regards to reference checks. Getting a company that hands out a negative reference check to a potential employee seeking employment elsewhere is subject to litigation. So we don't get sued, they do. That's hardly ever done anymore because in order to protect themselves from not being sued, all they do is verify dates of employment. Now, you can read into that if you want, that they didn't give you a positive reference check, but legally they can say whatever they want to the company that the person's being hired by, but if it gets out that they did that, they're gonna go to court and they're gonna lose. A lot of people don't do drug tests anymore, it has to relate to their job, and they just use drug testing, as a test if the employee has, accident. It's getting to be more of a slippery slope, especially in states where, recreational drugs are legal. We're not ceding any authority to them. We're hiring them, and we're giving them the authority and trusting that they will make the right decisions. I've been in a lot of interviews. I haven't seen anybody that didn't ask the right questions and avoided asking the wrong questions. I think there was a good point made. They don't even know what questions not to ask, let alone what questions to ask. I certainly don't with some of these positions. So all I'm looking for is red flags. We hire people. When I hired people, again, 100 years ago, I put out a requirement, but if somebody walked through that door and I knew they were gonna make it and they were smart and that they could learn, I hired them. I tried not to hire dumb. You can't fix dumb. Anyway, done rambling.
Mr. Schneider.
Just a short discussion. I personally think that the idea of having personnel and the oversight committee in on the interview is a way to learn what's going on in that department. Because you can do your study before and see what the job title is, what they're supposed to do. But that's up to whoever does it to make sure they do that. It's a good way to find out what's going on, because personally, our minutes don't tell us anything, and if anybody argues that point, I'll say, you're not right. But I think we're doing a lot more interviews now than we ever have recently. And finance apparently wanted to stop it because they thought they were spending too much money on it, is what I've heard. Personally, I think the idea of having two other people along with you two in there, basically it's gonna help cover your butts. You know, because if something does happen, and you swear, you know, you didn't do it or whatever way it is, it's a lot different than having an elected official sitting there going, no, that's not what happened. So, you know, I really think that should be in there, and hopefully it'll be in there in the revisions. Oh, and one other thing, and I'm guilty of it, and I'll say that. If we go back to this, it should be spread around more on the committee.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to
Postpone indefinitely all four.
All four of these? Yes. Is that correct, Mr. Moynihan? 2, 3, 4, and 5. Any more discussion on this? If not, we can vote on. Maybe. Yes, 7 no, passed by majority.
Have to conclude your agenda.
No, we got one more.
So do I, we don't go back to the original then?
Yeah, I would. I think.
Now I'm going
I just don't think they fix it.
All right, we have a discussion, possible motion, acceptance of the PSAP NG 911 grant. George will give us the presentation on it.
No.
Alright, there's a handout coming around of, the PowerPoint that we kind of put together. Our office, in conjunction with Nick at Land Conservation, wrote a dual purpose grant to deal with Next Gen 911. Our side was the call handling equipment, and the land conservation side was the GIS information, which is the land record information. No? Alright, so in your slide packet, actually if you can go to number 2. Our current state of our equipment. Currently we're running a Motorola Vesta phone system, which is end of life, it's outdated, and Motorola won't support it anymore. So we need to replace it. The 911 data, that is where Nick and John Fitzel come in. They're providing the phone company with our address data. So the 911, somebody calls 911, it pulls from that data correctly. AT&T has kind of taken over the entire state of Wisconsin to create an EZNet program. It's just a fancy term for, they want everybody's data to look the same. That way, if somebody calls 911 from a cell phone and they happen to be in Sawyer County or one of the surrounding counties, we can transfer it and everything will go all along. Right now, our 911 data comes from a trunking system, which is an old analog system where they're the phone companies are phasing out because they want to move everything to voice over IP, which is faster and there's much more ways to handle that information. Okay, questions so far? No? Again, AT&T is becoming the sole provider for the MSAG. Again, that's just the address database. They're taking a lot of these, they're taking basically all of Wisconsin and trying to make it so everybody's the same. If we don't go with the AT&T project, we're gonna fall under their data support, we're gonna fall in the bottom burners. They'll get to us when they can. If we have a contract, which we have already signed with AT&T, they will continue to provide top level service for us. But without it, we go to the bottom and they'll get to us when we get to us at whatever their cost would be. So benefits of being part of it is everything's the same, redundant data, it's accurate, gets us to get people there faster. And again, we have signed on already to go with the AT&T EZNet project. Our committee, I believe, signed on that before. I don't remember if I brought it to the full board or not, but go ahead. Again, this is a map of the current Next Gen 911. The counties with the green with the shaded are already live with Next Gen 911. The other ones are either have signed on with AT&T or have an active AT&T project. We are in the active AT&T project. We're in the very early stages of it, but we're getting there. Okay, so the grant. We wrote a grant to replace all of our equipment, software, training, which is a 90-10 grant. The state pays 90% of it, we pay 10% of it. So the grant award amount was $321,919.56. Our 10% match is $32,181.96. We earmarked ambulance funds to use for the total match. the state will give us $289,727.60. Okay, the breakdown is the equipment, the advanced training for staff. The advanced training for staff is going to add emergency medical dispatch to our people. What that is that somebody calls in, they're having a medical emergency, depending on how far they are from where the ambulance can get to them. Our dispatchers will provide pre-hospital instruction over the phone to try to better that person's outcome. So, within 3 years of accepting this grant, all our dispatchers have to be emergency medical dispatch certified. Okay, it's an online, you do everything here through the thing. So we have 3 years to accomplish this. The other piece of this puzzle is going to be the Intrado text to 911. What that's going to do is that's going to give us the ability to receive text 911 calls. In our area, I think that's very important because cell service is very sketchy. Sometimes you can get a text to go through where you can't get a call to go through. So I think it'll be an easier way. It'll also, if you got somebody that's in danger that can't speak, but they can text us what the problem is. They can't get somewhere safe to make a call, they can text. So those are benefits that we need to take into account to add text to 911. Okay. Again, emergency medical dispatch, again, obvious benefits for this are some of our ambulance response times are very long, depending on the outlying areas in the county, depending on what ambulance is in service. It may be anywhere from 10, 15, 20, up to 30 minutes to get the ambulance on scene. If there's some instruction that our people can give these folks to better the outcome, that's the goal. Okay, so here's the part that I need your guidance on. Currently, we are paying yearly maintenance of $18,616.19 for our AT&T maintenance for every year. Okay, if we add the dispatch portion of this, the emergency medical dispatch, the Intrado text to 911, and the Crossroads GIS, managed GIS services, will not affect our budget in 2025 at all. This will be 2026 and beyond.
So every year.
Every year after 2026 beyond. So again, probably the wrong time to bring this up, but unfortunately, we're in a time constraint. We have to either accept or deny this in the next couple of weeks. The reason we couldn't bring it to our committee first is obviously that's tomorrow and you guys don't meet again until December. So that's why I'm here for the entire board. Otherwise, we'd have went to our committee first. So again, our budget will increase $17,666.50 from 2026 on. So I'm seeking your guidance basically to allow us to accept this grant, to replace all of our call handling system, to add text to 911, to be able to introduce emergency medical dispatch to our people that will benefit the county. Eventually, we're going to be forced to do this anyway. So if the state's willing to pay for 90% of it at this point, I would like your approval to accept this grant, even though, yes, it's going to increase our budget in 2026 and beyond. So, like I said, we can either accept it now. I don't know if the grant will be there again. It was last year, it was this year. I don't know if it'll be here again in 2025 or not. But I don't want to not be able to afford it, or me come back to you and ask you for almost $400,000 out of our pocket. So, questions, comments?
That's good.
I was wondering how they know that they're going to have that much of an increase every year, or why
why would it always go up?
It's just like any other service contract, I mean, it's gonna increase each year. Parts go up, labor costs go up, fuel goes up, so does the maintenance contract. Technology too, yes.
Got three questions. One, what's Crossroad GIS? Never heard of that one.
Okay, Crossroads GIS is a company that handles, GIS data, which is mapping.
So it's an integral part of this whole system?
Yes, and Nick's right here.
I believe that it helps make the transition from the GIS data that we maintain to what is used in the dispatch software, the computer-aided dispatch software.
Another one is additional cost, 17,000. We force them to get trained. Union contracts are gonna make us pay more money, so that's gotta be in there too. I'd be surprised if they don't. That's something down the road we'll have to pay
Well,
attention to.
they're in the mix of union contract right now, so.
But didn't you say the training would be done here online?
Yeah, it's all online.
So it's gonna
It'll be a job requirement.
employees here, they're already being paid.
Right.
We're not gonna pay additional.
No, it's just a job requirement.
I've supported this, I've talked to George, a few years ago, Wisconsin counties are pushing for this thing, get on, cause we don't know how long this is gonna last. So I think we gotta get on it. And the one other question I got is they're saying to train the dispatchers. How many of them are they gonna retrain, considering we've got, in some places, a revolving door up there in dispatch? Don't know that either?
Well, I can't answer that. I mean, I hope the staff we have now stays, because we have a great staff right now that's working their butts off to keep us afloat.
But otherwise, I say we have to go for this. This is one of the smartest things we can do. I think hopefully we'll all agree on it.
Good.
Yep.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, you have a recommended place in your budget, you can cut somewhere else to make the necessary, to make up that budget for the extra 18,000 or whatever it is, or extra money there.
I would suspect in 2025 going into 26.
Where's somewhere in your budget right now that you would suggest you could make that change? Cause I think that should be in the motion, so we're not in another budget issue in another year. Everybody asks for money, everybody says it's only this much, it's only this much. Where do you want us to take it from in 2026 in your current budget?
I can't answer that. I can't, Phil.
I just don't wanna end up in the same place next year because we could.
That's why I'm here
Everything's
talking
a
to the
grant
entire
and
board, because I
everything
want
else.
your guidance. I don't wanna do something that's going to detrimental us down the road, so that's why I'm asking for your guidance at this point.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Susan.
This seems to be a safety, a public safety for our citizens. So I think it's very important that we consider this, but I do think that in 2025, we plan for this, for the 2026 budget. And if it's granted, look where we're at, we've got extra money, but I do think it needs to be done next year and certainly before November. So we need to have a plan as to how we're gonna pay for this, but I think it's epic for the citizens of Rusk County. I live way out, and I know this would be very good in our area.
I live just south of you in a dead spot, so I really do. Mr. Dan Goods.
The question I have is, how will this affect the ambulance service? Will it help that or not?
It should, I mean, once we get the program going, I'll work with Tom Hall and his medics, and we'll make this program fit our needs.
Cause I can give an example, I needed an ambulance, I had a massive heart attack, and I had to wait for an hour and a half for one to come down from Hayward.
Sure.
You know, that's a long time.
Right, so if you have, like I said, if you have things that the dispatchers can assist you with, if you have bleeding or CPR or anything like that, they can give you pre-hospital instructions on what to better yourself or somebody, your family member, to help you.
Thanks, that's all I got.
Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think some of the points that are made here are excellent. I agree with points made that I believe the sheriff's department should definitely make provisions, in next year, to be able to afford this increase. Somewhere in their budget, find room for that without increasing your budget. And I also think that, when you're offered 90% to pay for a project, that's not something that you would ever wanna turn down, I don't think, cause they're offering it now, who knows, they might just take away the funding.
Correct.
They could increase it by 50%, 90%, that's a gift horse, you don't wanna look at the mouth. Thank you.
Mr. Schneider?
Well, back to Dan's comment, regardless of whether it's 5 minutes or an hour and a half before an ambulance gets there, when I was an EMT, I wanted to know what was there. They'll be trained to get that information, so you already know what you're going, well, as much as you can, know what you're going to, and you can start sorting stuff out rather than, some of the times the information you get is just totally wrong. And it's in the worst cases usually, so.
And sometimes the family doesn't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, and so you'll be able to guide them.
Correct.
To getting the answers.
Mr. Jacobs?
So, where I work, we have a program that is similar to this. I don't know, I'm new here, many of you don't know, I work for Michael's Corporation, we employ 10,000 people. So, anytime there's an incident, we call a certain number, it's Michael's emergency response team, and it is phenomenal. I mean, it saves a lot of time, you don't always know where you are. So the GIS thing on that thing is gonna be a big help, for sure.
Any other questions? Not, we need in order to.
Somebody needs to make a motion
You
to.
didn't say that.
No, somebody's gotta actually make the motion.
I was gonna say that.
Say it, like, say what the motion is.
Hopefully,
Mr. Russell, Mr. Russell,
Yes,
can you
sir.
say what your motion is, please? I didn't get that.
I move to approve the grant as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Russell to approve the grant as accepted. Second by Mr. Kudo. Is there any other more questions? Yeah, that's good.
I was wondering if we should put in there that the sheriff's department will be responsible for finding this room for this in the budget. They're aware of it, and there's no question about it, it's gotta come out.
Amendment, there was?
What's that, Phil?
Are you making an amendment?
Is that what it needs?
You guys can sure do that, but there's no monetary implications for 2025. So if you make a motion to accept this grant and have this money paid out of the budget in 2026, when you do your budget in 2026 or in 2025 for the 2026, you can remove that, amend that, modify it. So it really doesn't make, I mean, you sure can to put that in there that was the intent, but there's no reason that you can't change that 1 year from now. That's kind of how we heard a bunch, and then we ended up where we are. I'm just saying,
I mean, it gets forgotten and doesn't happen.
Yeah, at least if it's in writing. Okay, no troubles.
You, that's up to Lois, if she wants to amend that.
Okay.
She lost the floor, so she can't hit the amendment.
That's right. Well, that's for our.
She hit it.
You see, and I don't see.
This. But if you amend, this is what I get. So do you want me to ignore this one? And have her
Cancel out and redo it.
do that once a month?
we're back to the square one. So if you want to proceed,
Lois, you wanna make a motion to have all costs of the grant be paid out of the sheriff's department budget?
Yes.
Okay, so can you hit your amend button?
I don't
She
have
did
it.
that.
Oh, okay.
You said she had to have the floor.
okay, so
I didn't know that you do that though.
okay, so that's her motion.
Can you amend one more time, please?
I don't have amendment on my screen.
It's your push to talk button.
It's blank. Everyone's blank.
There it is. That's the original.
The amend button, it's not looking too good.
Okay.
What is your motion against?
Yeah, I make a motion to have the amount in the sheriff's budget,
All county allocated costs to be paid from the sheriff's department budget,
thank you very much.
correct?
That's her motion. That's Lois's motion, is there a second? Second by Mr. Hampton. Any questioning on it, if not, we can vote on it,
This is on the amendment only.
on the amendment only.
Now listen, like this beat till you clear it on.
Mr. Willingham? Are you gonna vote?
Well, I might. Waiting for my instructions.
That's by majority.
Thank you.
No, oh,
Wait,
no,
wait,
no,
wait,
no,
no,
original.
that's-
Original doesn't have it, no.
First step, thank you.
Alright, now back to the original motion, and Mr. Meyer wants to speak.
I'd like some clarification, if I could please. So, everything that's listed on this piece of paper is what we're voting on here? The total maintenance cost for 2026, 35, I mean, it looks like there's different caveats to this presentation, correct?
So the current balance, 18, 16, 19, we're already paying. The
Right.
difference of all the other stuff is 17,650.
The total on the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
But we're doing, all of these things are separately, right? Crossroads GIS, Introdo text. Those
They're
are
all-
like options
No,
for
they're
like
all
buying a
included,
car?
they're all included. They're all
Okay, they're all
included.
included into that
Yep.
original 35 down there.
Yes, but again, I took the 18,116 off of it because we're already paying that. That's not new. The only new is the 17,650.
Okay.
So those are all maintenance costs?
Yes.
26.
Yes, 26 and beyond.
So in other words, the total maintenance cost is 53?
No, the
Yeah,
total
those two
maintenance,
together?
no, the total maintenance is 35,782.69.
This is the new cost,
Okay.
this is the current cost. This
Okay.
one plus this one equals the
Equals that one.
2026 budget.
Gotcha, I'm with you, thank you. I knew a box of crayons would help me out there.
I believe that that number is incorrect. If you look at the top page, it says that AT&T's maintenance costs in 2026 will be 21,000. If you add everything up, if you add 17,666 to that, it's gonna be almost 39,000.
Brian, I can answer that. Currently, we are paying between 116 to 19 on our Bristol 911. If we continue with that, as counties go off of the Best 911 system, there are fewer and fewer in the state of Wisconsin to be supported. So AT&T is gonna make their money one way or another. So if we stay where we are, then we're gonna start paying 21, 82, 60.
Okay, so if we make the switch, what we're currently paying will continue on as the same. It'll be the 18 plus the other 17.
Correct.
In the 35.
Correct, it'd be 21 if we do nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? If not, we can vote on it. I get the budget for, 19 now, passed by majority.
Actually, I forwarded you the original, so Mr. Chairman can sign it.
I don't know who he is.
Yep.
All right, we've
Thanks,
already
fellas.
done recognitions, so we're at announcements. Any announcements? December, next board meeting, December 3rd. Training, with Mr. WCA and Andy Phillips.
It's Saturday.
December 3rd?
So that's Saturday.
No.
Just asking.
Does that take place of the, also, regular board meeting? No, this is in addition to. What time? What time on the 3rd? Oh.
Occupation, I gotta pull up my calendar.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
Well, Wednesday, I heard it was 8.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. on December 3rd.
What about the 17th?
Yeah, what about the 17th? How do we fit that all together?
I'm working on it.
That's the regular schedule.
That's it, 7.
They're coming to.
Okay, December 17th is at 7.
6 or 7. Just 2 meetings? I missed the date, sorry.
January 7th.
Okay, that was.
The other one's January 7th, the 3rd, and the 3rd meeting at 6.
January 7th is another training meeting, at 6 o'clock. January 7th is training.
Right.
17th, we're gonna have a county board.
December 17th is December.
Bump that to 6. Everybody's good with that.
January 7th is
Is everybody good with the December 17th meeting, bumping it to 6 p.m. instead of 7?
It's an hour?
December board meeting.
Yes.
No, oh, it's board meeting?
Well, it's not a board meeting, and Andy Phillips will be there too, so we're gonna bump it an hour early and get started. All right, anybody else got any questions?
Leave them all over again. 6, 6, and 6. December 3rd is 6, December 17th is 6, and January 7th is 6.
All right, any other announcements, or does anybody need anything repeated?
No, except the motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Buller, second by Moore. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourned. Damn it, Kurt.